There are moments in life when you start feeling like you're sinking, not because of the choices you've made, but because of the people you've allowed to stay close. Deep down, there's this constant ache, a tug at your soul that whispers, something's not right. You've tried to shake it off, maybe even ignore it, convincing yourself that things will get better. But the truth is, some people are not meant to stay, and holding on to them is costing you more than you realize. Every day, you give pieces of yourself to others, your time, energy, love, and trust. But what happens when those pieces are taken for granted, when the people you care about slowly chip away at your spirit? You've been patient, haven't you? You've been understanding, forgiving, and generous with second chances. But what has it brought you? Exhaustion, emotional fatigue, the constant feeling that you're never enough, no matter how much you bend or how hard you try. Life is too short to be spent in the shadows of others who dim your light. Yet, so many of us cling to toxic relationships out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of being judged, fear of regret. But ask yourself, what's scarier, letting go of those who hurt you or allowing them to keep you trapped in their chaos? You deserve peace. You deserve to breathe without the weight of someone else's manipulation, negativity, or deceit pressing on your chest. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that lead to the greatest growth. Letting go of people, especially those who have been part of your life for years, can feel like ripping out a piece of your heart. But staying in a relationship that drains you will eventually cost you something far more valuable: your self-worth. The more you allow disrespect, the more you teach yourself that this is what you deserve. And that, my friend, is the most dangerous lie of all. It's time to stop lying to yourself. You're not weak for wanting to cut ties with people who bring you pain. You're not selfish for choosing your own well-being. In fact, choosing to walk away from toxic relationships is one of the strongest, most courageous acts of self-love you will ever perform. It's about reclaiming your life, your energy, your happiness. You've spent far too long pouring into others, hoping they would change, hoping they would finally see your worth. But they haven't, and they won't. Why? Because people who constantly disrespect you, manipulate you, or bring negativity into your life thrive on your inability to walk away. They've learned that no matter what they do, you'll stay. But here's the thing: you staying only enables their behavior. It's time to break the cycle. It's time to show yourself the love and respect you've been so willing to give others. When you cut ties with toxic individuals, it's not about punishing them. It's about healing yourself. It's about creating space for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. It's about protecting your peace and choosing to surround yourself with people who uplift you rather than tear you down. Think of all the energy you've wasted on arguments, misunderstandings, hurtful words, and sleepless nights, wondering what you did wrong. Now, think of what your life could be like without all of that noise. Clear, calm, purposeful. You see, by holding on to the wrong people, you block yourself from experiencing the right ones. The ones who will love you without conditions. The ones who will respect your boundaries, value your kindness, and never take advantage of your generosity. There is strength in walking away. There is power in protecting your peace. It's not easy, I know. You might have shared beautiful memories with these people. Maybe they were there for you in times when no one else was. But if they've become toxic, if they've started taking more than they give, it's time to let go. Don't hold on to people out of guilt or nostalgia. Remember, you're not responsible for fixing anyone but yourself. You can't heal someone who refuses to acknowledge their own wounds. Your loyalty should not come at the expense of your happiness. The hardest part about cutting ties isn't the initial decision, it's sticking to it. It's resisting the urge to reach out again, to let them back in because it's familiar or because you miss them. But remind yourself why you chose to walk away in the first place. Remember the pain, the constant disappointments, the way they made you feel small or unworthy. Those memories will guide you through the moments of doubt. And when the time comes, when you finally cut ties, don't just close the door, lock it. Protect yourself from the cycle repeating itself. It's not just about removing them from your life, it's about creating boundaries that ensure no one else will treat you the way they did. You've learned from this. You're stronger now, wiser, and you owe it to yourself to never let anyone else steal your joy again. This is the moment you take back control. Imagine waking up without the dread of another confrontation or the anxiety of walking on eggshells. Imagine what it feels like to be surrounded by people who truly care for you, people who support your dreams and celebrate your wins. That's what cutting ties gives you. The freedom to live authentically, to be unapologetically yourself without fear of judgment or manipulation. It's time to choose yourself. No more waiting for someone to change. No more hoping they'll finally see your worth. You already know your value, and anyone who fails to recognize it has no place in your life. Letting go is not the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of a life where you prioritize your mental and emotional well-being. The beginning of a journey toward healing, growth, and authentic connection. So, take a deep breath. You're not losing anything by walking away. You're gaining everything. Peace, clarity, self-respect, and the space for relationships that nurture rather than deplete you. The path won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because in the end, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Are you ready to choose yourself? This is your life. This is your moment to rise, to let go, and to never look back. Because you, my friend, are worth it. You've already taken the first step by acknowledging the weight certain relationships have on your heart. The constant battle of trying to keep your peace while someone else constantly chips away at it can feel exhausting. But now it's time to dive deeper into one of the most damaging behaviors you can encounter: when someone continuously disrespects your boundaries. It starts small, often unnoticed at first. You set a simple boundary, something that reflects your needs, something that should be easy to respect. But what happens when that line is crossed repeatedly? You begin to feel uneasy, questioning yourself, wondering if maybe you're asking for too much. This is where the problem lies, allowing those small transgressions to become a pattern. Each time your boundaries are disrespected, you lose a little more of yourself. Respecting boundaries isn't just about understanding personal space or preferences. It's about valuing a person's right to exist as they are, without manipulation or coercion. When someone constantly disrespects your boundaries, they send a message. Your needs don't matter. It may not be said aloud, but it's communicated through actions that undermine your well-being. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guides to let others know how to interact with you in a way that honors your values and emotions. When someone refuses to follow those guidelines, they are showing you that your emotional and mental health is not important to them. This is a direct violation of the respect every person deserves in a relationship. The more this happens, the more you begin to internalize the disrespect. You start to doubt whether your boundaries are reasonable or whether you're being too sensitive. But here's the truth. Your boundaries are not only reasonable, they are essential for maintaining your self-respect and inner peace. Letting someone disrespect them continuously is a slow erosion of your self-worth. Stoicism teaches that maintaining your boundaries is not just an act of self-preservation, but a form of self-respect. The Stoics believed in focusing on what you can control: your reactions, your emotions, and your choices. You can't control the behavior of others, but you can control how much access you allow them to have to your life. When someone shows a pattern of boundary crossing, the Stoic approach is clear. Remove yourself from the situation. You deserve peace, and peace begins with honoring yourself enough to enforce your boundaries. Each time someone ignores your limits, they are testing how far they can push you. And with every push, you're left to either reinforce your boundary or let it crumble. The more you let things slide, the weaker your stance becomes, and soon you may find yourself in a situation where your boundaries no longer exist. It's like handing over control of your life to someone who doesn't value it the way you do. You may tell yourself that they don't mean to hurt you, that they just don't understand. But people who care about you will make the effort to learn and respect what's important to you. Constantly disrespected boundaries are not a sign of misunderstanding. They are a sign of disregard. And no relationship, no matter how long or deep, is worth sacrificing your mental health and peace of mind. Think about how it feels when someone crosses your boundaries: frustration, hurt, confusion. Over time, those feelings compound, leading to resentment and anger. The people who violate your boundaries often don't face any consequences for their actions, leaving you to carry the emotional burden. This dynamic creates an unhealthy power imbalance where you're constantly giving and they're constantly taking, all the while disregarding your need for respect. Boundaries are not just about protecting yourself from harm, they are about defining what you are willing to accept from others. When someone keeps crossing those lines, it's a form of manipulation. They know what you've asked for, and yet they choose to ignore it because they don't respect your right to say no. This isn't just about a lack of respect for your boundaries, it's about a lack of respect for you. Allowing someone to repeatedly disrespect your boundaries sets a dangerous precedent. It teaches them that you're willing to tolerate being mistreated, that your needs are flexible, and that their desires come first. The more you allow this, the harder it becomes to reclaim your power and reassert your boundaries. You're left feeling depleted, constantly on edge, waiting for the next violation. What's worse is that the more you allow boundary crossing to happen, the more likely it is that the person will push even further. It starts with small things, interrupting your conversations, dismissing your feelings. Then it escalates to bigger infractions, ignoring your wishes entirely, making decisions for you without your consent. Before long, you find yourself in a relationship where you feel voiceless and powerless. Stoicism teaches that peace is found within, and that external circumstances should not dictate your inner state. However, constantly having your boundaries violated makes it nearly impossible to find that peace. You're in a constant state of alert, trying to protect yourself from someone who should be respecting you. This is why Stoicism emphasizes the importance of removing toxic influences from your life. You cannot find tranquility in chaos. It's not just about the immediate discomfort of boundary crossing, it's about the long-term effects. Over time, being around someone who consistently disrespects your boundaries can lead to feelings of worthlessness, anxiety, and even depression. You start to believe that your boundaries aren't important, that you don't deserve to be treated with respect. This is why it's crucial to act quickly when you notice someone disrespecting your limits. People who disrespect your boundaries don't just affect you emotionally, they impact your ability to trust others. Once someone has repeatedly crossed your boundaries, you may find it difficult to open up or set boundaries with anyone else. The damage they cause doesn't just affect your relationship with them, it seeps into every other aspect of your life, eroding your confidence in your ability to stand up for yourself. It's easy to tell yourself that it's not a big deal, that you can handle it, or that the person will change. But boundary violations are not just minor inconveniences, they are direct assaults on your self-worth. Every time someone crosses your boundary and you let it slide, you are telling yourself that their comfort is more important than your peace. This is not a sustainable way to live. Setting boundaries is an act of self-love. It's telling yourself, I deserve to be treated with respect, and I will not tolerate anything less. When someone disregards that, they are showing you that they don't value you in the way that you value yourself. It's a painful realization, but it's one that needs to be acknowledged. You deserve to be surrounded by people who respect you, not just tolerate you. You may think that cutting someone out of your life for crossing boundaries is extreme, but ask yourself this: how extreme is it to allow someone to continually chip away at your peace and happiness? How extreme is it to sacrifice your well-being for the sake of someone else's comfort? Boundaries exist for a reason, and when they are not respected, it's your right, your duty, to walk away. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care about the person. It means you care about yourself enough to stop allowing them to hurt you. You've spent enough time trying to make excuses for their behavior, hoping they'll change, or minimizing the damage they're doing. But deep down, you know that if they haven't respected your boundaries by now, they never will. The more you enforce your boundaries, the more you'll realize that the people who truly care about you will respect them. They won't see your boundaries as a challenge or a test. They will see them as an expression of your needs and values. These are the people who deserve to be in your life, not the ones who disregard your well-being. Choosing to cut ties with someone who disrespects your boundaries isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of liberation. It's freeing yourself from the constant anxiety and emotional turmoil that comes with having your boundaries crossed. It's creating space in your life for people who will respect and value you the way you deserve to be treated. Your boundaries are sacred. They are not negotiable. Anyone who disrespects them is showing you that they don't deserve a place in your life. It's time to take control, to protect your peace, and to surround yourself with people who uplift you, not tear you down. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for protecting your well-being is you. And you have the power to enforce that protection by cutting ties with anyone who refuses to respect your boundaries. When you've made the difficult but necessary decision to cut ties with someone who continuously disrespects your boundaries, there's often a sense of relief that follows. However, another deeply corrosive behavior can seep into your life and wreak just as much havoc: chronic negativity. While it may not always appear as obvious as boundary violations, its impact on your well-being is profound. Constant negativity isn't just a passing mood, it's a pervasive force that can darken your life, pulling you into a cycle of emotional exhaustion. Let's explore why chronic negativity is something you cannot afford to tolerate, and why walking away from it may be the most liberating decision you'll ever make. Negativity has a way of creeping in and settling itself into your daily existence. It starts with small complaints, minor grumbles about life's usual struggles, but over time, it grows. Being around someone who constantly focuses on what's wrong instead of what's right slowly drains your energy. It's like carrying an invisible weight that you didn't agree to hold. Eventually, you begin to notice that even when you're not with them, their voice still lingers in your mind, clouding your thoughts with their pessimism. People who live in negativity don't just affect themselves. They create an environment of gloom that seeps into everything. It can start to feel as if no matter what you do, it's never enough. You might offer solutions or encouragement, but their response remains the same: a never-ending stream of complaints, doubts, and criticisms. In this kind of environment, growth is stunted. It's difficult to nurture anything positive when negativity is suffocating all your attempts to find light. The truth is, negativity is contagious. Just like a bad habit, it spreads from one person to another, altering the way you see the world. What once seemed achievable now feels out of reach. Your dreams, ambitions, and even your happiness begin to shrink under the weight of someone else's bleak worldview. You start to question whether your goals are too lofty, whether your optimism is naive. Slowly, you absorb their negativity without even realizing it. Stoicism teaches that we must guard our inner peace fiercely. Your peace is fragile, and surrounding yourself with negativity chips away at it bit by bit. In the end, you might find yourself consumed by worries and doubts that aren't even yours. It becomes harder to maintain a balanced and grounded perspective when you're constantly bombarded by someone else's dark outlook on life. Negativity doesn't just affect your emotional state, it impacts your physical well-being too. Carrying around the emotional baggage of someone who constantly complains or sees the world through a negative lens leads to stress, anxiety, and even fatigue. Your body responds to negativity as if it's under attack, keeping you in a heightened state of tension. Over time, this can lead to burnout, affecting not only your emotional health, but your overall quality of life. Being around someone who is chronically negative can make it difficult to remain hopeful and motivated. No matter how strong your convictions or how positive your mindset, prolonged exposure to negativity starts to take its toll. You might find yourself feeling demotivated, unsure of the path you're on, and questioning whether any of your efforts will ever pay off. This is why Stoicism advises us to distance ourselves from negative influences. In order to thrive, you must cultivate an environment that supports growth, not one that smothers it. Negative people often don't realize the harm they cause. They may genuinely believe that they're just being realistic or honest, but in reality, they are projecting their fears and insecurities onto everyone around them. This projection becomes a burden you are forced to carry. You begin to navigate conversations carefully, trying to avoid triggering yet another complaint or outburst of pessimism. Instead of having meaningful, enriching discussions, every interaction feels heavy, as if you're being dragged into their storm of complaints. No one should have to live under the constant pressure of someone else's negativity. It's not your responsibility to fix someone who refuses to see the good in life. Yet, many of us stay, thinking we can be the one to change their outlook, to bring some light into their world. But here's the harsh truth. If someone is committed to their negativity, no amount of positivity on your part will shift their perspective. You will only end up drained and disillusioned. Negativity has a way of suffocating joy. When you're constantly exposed to someone who can't see the beauty in life, it becomes harder to appreciate the good things happening around you. You may find yourself hesitating to share your successes, afraid that they'll dismiss or downplay your achievements. Over time, their negativity not only drags you down, but diminishes your ability to celebrate the positives in your own life. Relationships should be a source of support and encouragement, not an anchor that pulls you down. But when negativity becomes a defining trait in a relationship, it distorts the balance. You may feel obligated to stay, to help, or to be there for them, but at what cost? Your well-being, your peace. Chronic negativity doesn't just hurt you in the moment, it chips away at the joy and potential in your future. Stoicism reminds us that we must prioritize our inner tranquility. That means cutting ties with those who refuse to see beyond their negativity, those who cling to their pessimism no matter how much it damages the relationship. Staying in such an environment won't just prevent you from growing, it will erode the peace and happiness you've worked so hard to cultivate. You cannot find light in the darkness of someone else's unresolved issues. It's important to remember that walking away from someone who embodies chronic negativity isn't a failure on your part. It doesn't mean you didn't try hard enough or that you're abandoning them. Instead, it's a recognition that in order to protect your own well-being, you must let go of people who consistently drain your energy. It's an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. When you choose to distance yourself from negativity, you open up space for positivity to flourish. You create an environment where joy, creativity, and hope can thrive. You allow yourself to reconnect with the things that bring you peace and purpose, without the constant drain of someone else's complaints. The world starts to feel brighter, opportunities more attainable, and your energy renewed. In time, you will realize just how much chronic negativity was holding you back. It wasn't just an emotional burden, it was a barrier between you and your potential. The weight of someone else's pessimism kept you grounded when you should have been soaring. By cutting ties, you release yourself from that burden and allow yourself to focus on the things that truly matter to you. One of the most liberating aspects of removing chronic negativity from your life is the clarity it brings. Without the constant noise of complaints, criticisms, and doubts, you can start to hear your own voice again. You can reconnect with your passions, your goals, and your sense of purpose. It's like stepping out of a fog and into a clear, open field where anything is possible. You may find that after distancing yourself from negativity, you're more patient, more optimistic, and more resilient. Negativity has a way of distorting reality, making everything seem harder and more complicated than it truly is. But when you free yourself from that influence, you realize that life is far more manageable than you thought. Challenges don't seem as overwhelming, and setbacks don't feel as permanent. Cutting ties with someone who constantly brings negativity into your life isn't about abandoning them. It's about choosing yourself. It's about deciding that your peace, your happiness, and your growth are worth more than the weight of their complaints. It's about reclaiming your life and your energy for yourself. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the idea that we must cultivate our inner world to maintain balance and harmony. This means letting go of things and people that disturb that balance. Chronic negativity is a disturbance that not only affects your mood, but hinders your ability to grow and find fulfillment. Letting go of that influence is an essential step toward living a life aligned with your true values. You have the power to decide who you allow into your space. You have the right to walk away from people who consistently bring negativity into your life. It's not an easy decision, but it's a necessary one. By cutting ties with chronic negativity, you're making a commitment to yourself, to your happiness, your peace, and your future. Surround yourself with people who bring light into your life, who encourage you to grow, and who celebrate your successes. Life is too short to be spent in the company of those who only see the world through a lens of negativity. By walking away from that darkness, you're choosing to step into a brighter, more fulfilling future. Let go of those who bring you down and watch how your life begins to rise. The space you create by cutting ties with negativity is the space where joy, peace, and success will bloom. Your energy is precious. Don't waste it on those who don't appreciate its value. Choose positivity, choose growth, and most importantly, choose yourself. As you step away from the grip of chronic negativity, the path ahead becomes clearer, lighter, and more focused on your well-being. But there's another threat that quietly invades your peace: manipulation and control. This form of toxicity is subtle, often disguised as concern, love, or friendship. Yet, beneath the surface, it is designed to twist your thoughts, make you doubt your own reality, and bend you to someone else's will. Recognizing this manipulation is key, but acting on it, removing such people from your life, requires even more strength. Let's delve into how manipulation slowly corrodes your peace, and why Stoicism guides you to remove this threat, to regain your inner freedom. Manipulation is a form of psychological warfare. It's not always blatant, but its effects are deeply harmful. It starts with small suggestions, seemingly innocent comments designed to influence your decisions. Over time, these suggestions morph into control. The manipulator makes you question your choices, your feelings, and eventually, your identity. By the time you realize what's happening, The web of control has been spun so tightly around you that breaking free seems impossible. People who manipulate often prey on your vulnerabilities. They know how to push your emotional buttons and exploit your weaknesses. They create scenarios where you feel indebted to them or reliant on their approval. This dependence is the core of their control. What may start as gentle persuasion soon becomes a pattern of behavior that leaves you second-guessing every decision you make. The manipulator gains power by making you feel incapable of making choices without their guidance. Stoicism teaches the importance of personal autonomy. You have control over your own actions, thoughts, and emotions, but manipulation seeks to strip that control away. By allowing someone to manipulate you, you are relinquishing your power, giving them control over your life. Stoics believe that external influences should not dictate your inner state, yet manipulators do just that. They worm their way into your mind and alter your sense of self. Recognizing manipulation isn't always easy because it's often wrapped in the guise of care or affection. The manipulator will say things like, "I'm just looking out for you," or "I know what's best for you." These statements may seem comforting at first, but they carry an underlying message. You can't trust yourself to make the right decisions. Over time, this erodes your self-confidence, leaving you more vulnerable to their influence. One of the most dangerous aspects of manipulation is that it slowly isolates you from others. Manipulators create a sense of dependency, making you feel as though they are the only person you can trust. They subtly criticize your friends, undermine your family, and plant seeds of doubt about anyone who might challenge their control over you. The more isolated you become, the stronger their grip on you. In relationships where manipulation is present, you often feel as though you're walking on eggshells. You start to adjust your behavior, censor your thoughts, and modify your actions to avoid conflict or disapproval. This constant adjustment takes a toll on your mental health as you slowly lose touch with who you are. The person you once were, confident, decisive, and free, becomes buried under the weight of someone else's expectations. Stoicism advocates for living in accordance with your true nature. That means living authentically without bending to the will of others. Manipulation is the opposite of this. It forces you to suppress your true self, to hide your desires and needs in favor of someone else's agenda. This creates an inner conflict, as your values clash with the reality of the relationship. You know something is wrong, but the manipulator's influence makes it difficult to act. Manipulators are skilled at turning situations to their advantage. They know how to play the victim when it suits them, making you feel guilty for questioning their motives. They may even convince you that you're the problem, that your inability to trust them is a flaw in your character. This is where manipulation becomes especially dangerous. It distorts your sense of reality, leaving you doubting your own perceptions. Stoicism teaches that our perceptions of the world are within our control. Manipulation, however, seeks to hijack those perceptions. The manipulator tries to shape your view of the world to suit their needs, often at the expense of your happiness and peace of mind. By controlling how you see things, they can dictate how you react to situations, ensuring that you act in ways that benefit them, not yourself. When you recognize manipulation, it's crucial to act swiftly. The longer you stay entangled in someone else's control, the harder it becomes to break free. Each day you remain in their grasp, the more your sense of self erodes. The manipulator will not stop unless you remove them from your life, because their power depends on your continued participation in their game. Cutting ties with a manipulator is not just about removing them from your life. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about asserting your right to make decisions for yourself, to live according to your own values and principles. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from within, but manipulation makes it impossible to access that peace. Only by removing the source of control can you begin to heal and rediscover your true self. Manipulators often try to guilt you into staying. They'll tell you that you're abandoning them, that you're overreacting, or that they were only trying to help. But their words are just another layer of control designed to keep you from leaving. Stoicism reminds us that we are not responsible for the emotions or actions of others. You are not abandoning them. You are choosing to protect yourself. Breaking free from manipulation requires strength, but it also requires clarity. You must see the situation for what it truly is, a one-sided relationship where your needs are consistently overshadowed by someone else's desires. The manipulator will never prioritize your well-being because their focus is on maintaining control. Stoicism teaches that we must act in accordance with reason, not emotion, and the reasonable choice in a manipulative relationship is to leave. It's easy to feel trapped in a manipulative relationship, especially if the person has been a part of your life for a long time. But longevity does not justify control. Just because someone has been in your life for years doesn't mean they have the right to dictate how you live. Stoicism teaches us to value quality over quantity, and that applies to relationships too. A long-term relationship built on manipulation is far less valuable than a short-term connection built on mutual respect. The process of removing a manipulator from your life is painful. It requires facing hard truths about the relationship and accepting that the person you trusted may never have had your best interests at heart. But this pain is temporary. The peace that follows, the freedom to live without the constant pressure of someone else's control, is worth every difficult moment. Manipulators don't always leave easily. They may try to re-enter your life using guilt, charm, or false promises of change to lure you back. But once you recognize their patterns, it becomes easier to resist their attempts. You've seen through their tactics, and Stoicism encourages you to hold firm. Your peace is too valuable to risk by letting them back into your world. Removing a manipulator from your life is a powerful act of self-respect. It's a declaration that your life, your thoughts, and your choices are your own. No one has the right to take that from you. Stoicism teaches that we must guard our inner world carefully, and manipulation is a direct threat to that inner peace. By cutting ties, you are protecting the most important part of yourself, your autonomy. The relief that comes after breaking free from manipulation is indescribable. Suddenly, you no longer have to second-guess your every move. You no longer have to filter your words or actions through someone else's expectations. You are free to live authentically, to pursue your own goals and desires, without the weight of someone else's control holding you back. Stoicism teaches that we must seek to live virtuously, but virtue cannot thrive in an environment of manipulation. Manipulators push you to compromise your values, to act in ways that serve their interests rather than your own. By cutting them out, you're creating space for virtue to flourish. You're allowing yourself to grow in ways that were previously stifled by their influence. One of the hardest parts of dealing with manipulation is accepting that the person may never change. You may hold out hope that they will see the error of their ways, that they will finally recognize the damage they've done. But Stoicism reminds us that we cannot control others, only ourselves. Waiting for a manipulator to change is a losing battle. The only thing you can control is your decision to leave. The manipulator may not see themselves as manipulative. They may genuinely believe that their actions are justified, that they are helping you in some way. But intent doesn't change the impact of their behavior. Regardless of whether they mean well or not, their manipulation is harmful, and it is your right to protect yourself from that harm. Once you break free from manipulation, you may feel a sense of loss. It's natural to mourn the relationship, even if it was unhealthy. But Stoicism teaches that true peace comes from letting go of attachments that no longer serve us. By releasing the manipulator, you're not just freeing yourself from their control, you're also freeing yourself from the emotional weight of the relationship. Your journey toward peace and autonomy is ongoing, but each step you take away from manipulation brings you closer to that goal. By removing those who seek to control you, you are affirming your commitment to living a life that aligns with your values, your desires, and your truth. And in doing so, you are reclaiming the most important thing of all, your peace. After freeing yourself from the grip of manipulation, it feels like you've stepped into a new chapter of your life, one where you reclaim your autonomy and restore balance. But there's another force just as damaging and at times even more difficult to overcome: broken trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and when it shatters, the cracks run deep. Trust can take years to build and just moments to destroy. Yet, once it's broken beyond repair, it's often impossible to restore the same connection. Understanding why broken trust is a deal breaker is crucial, and Stoicism offers timeless wisdom in helping you recognize when it's time to walk away from dishonesty, protecting both your integrity and peace of mind. Trust is the glue that holds relationships together, whether it's between friends, family members, or romantic partners. Without it, there is no solid ground to stand on. When someone lies to you, betrays you, or deceives you in any way, it shakes the very foundation of your relationship. This betrayal can leave you feeling vulnerable, questioning everything you once believed. It's more than just a broken promise. It's a breach of faith. In any relationship, trust is what allows you to open yourself up, to be vulnerable, and to feel secure. When that trust is broken, it feels as though a protective layer has been stripped away, leaving you exposed to further hurt. The damage doesn't just stop at the betrayal itself. It seeps into the way you perceive the person and the relationship. What once felt safe now feels unstable, filled with doubt and suspicion. Stoicism teaches that we must value integrity above all. When someone breaks your trust, they have compromised their integrity, and by continuing to engage with them, you risk compromising your own. Trust isn't just about the other person's actions, it's about how those actions affect your sense of self. The longer you stay in a relationship where trust has been shattered, the more you begin to doubt your own judgment, your own ability to trust again. Once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to return to the way things were. You may try to forgive, to move on, to rebuild, but no matter how hard you try, that seed of doubt remains. You find yourself questioning their every word, their every action, wondering if they'll betray you again. This constant vigilance drains your emotional energy, leaving you exhausted and emotionally depleted. In relationships where trust has been shattered, communication becomes strained. Instead of speaking openly and honestly, you become guarded, fearful of being hurt again. You may begin to withhold your thoughts, your feelings, even your love. The relationship, once filled with mutual respect and understanding, becomes a battleground of hidden emotions and unspoken fears. Stoicism reminds us that trust, like respect, is something that must be earned and maintained. When someone breaks your trust, they have shown you that they do not value the bond you share. It's not just about the lie or betrayal itself. It's about what that act reveals about their character. Stoics believe in facing reality head-on, without illusions. When someone shows you who they truly are, you must have the courage to accept it, no matter how painful it may be. In a relationship without trust, there is no true intimacy, no real connection. You may go through the motions of a relationship, but the emotional bond has been severed. Without trust, you're always holding back, always protecting yourself from the possibility of further betrayal. This self-protection, while necessary, also prevents the relationship from growing and evolving. Broken trust leaves scars that are difficult to heal. Even if the person who betrayed you is remorseful, the wound they've caused can linger for years. Every time you try to move forward, that memory of betrayal resurfaces, casting a shadow over the relationship. You may forgive, but forgetting is nearly impossible. The past becomes a barrier between you and the future you hope to build together. When trust is broken, it's not just about the specific incident, it's about the ripple effect it causes. One act of betrayal can make you question everything, even things that were never in doubt before. You start to wonder if there were other lies, other betrayals that you didn't see. The more you dig, the more uncertainty you find, until the entire relationship feels like it was built on a foundation of deception. Stoicism teaches that we must distance ourselves from those who compromise our values. Integrity, honesty, and trust are core to any healthy relationship, and when those are violated, it's a clear sign that the relationship is no longer serving you. Continuing to stay in a relationship where trust is broken only leads to more pain, more disappointment, and a loss of self-respect. The hardest part about broken trust is deciding when to walk away. You may feel torn, holding on to the hope that things can go back to the way they were, that the person will change. But Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our decisions, our boundaries. You cannot control someone else's honesty or integrity, but you can control how much of yourself you're willing to give to someone who has already shown they don't value your trust. Trust, once lost, rarely returns in its full form. You may rebuild a semblance of it, but the cracks will always be there, reminding you of the betrayal. Each time you think the relationship is healing, something triggers that old wound, and you're thrown back into a spiral of doubt and hurt. The peace you once had is forever tainted by the knowledge that the person you trusted most has deceived you. In relationships where trust is broken, you often find yourself overcompensating, trying to make up for the betrayal by being overly understanding, overly forgiving. You convince yourself that by giving more, by trying harder, you can fix what was broken. But trust isn't something you can repair with effort alone. It requires a fundamental change in the person who broke it, and often that change never comes. Continuing in a relationship with broken trust feels like constantly walking on shaky ground. You're never sure when the next crack will appear, when the next lie or betrayal will surface. This constant uncertainty creates anxiety, eroding your mental health and emotional stability. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from within, but it's nearly impossible to find that peace when you're in a relationship built on dishonesty. The person who broke your trust may ask for forgiveness, and you may give it, but forgiveness doesn't erase the damage. It doesn't erase the sleepless nights, the tears, the anger. Forgiveness is a personal choice, but it doesn't mean you have to continue the relationship. Stoicism encourages us to let go of relationships that no longer align with our values, even if we have forgiven the person. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-respect is walking away from someone who has broken your trust. It's a declaration that you will no longer tolerate dishonesty in your life, that you value yourself enough to demand integrity from those around you. Leaving may be painful, but staying in a relationship without trust is far more damaging in the long run. When trust is broken, it's not just the relationship that suffers. Your sense of self is also affected. You begin to question your own judgment, wondering how you could have trusted someone who betrayed you. This self-doubt can be crippling, making it difficult to trust anyone else in the future. But Stoicism teaches that we must learn from our experiences without letting them define us. The betrayal may have been painful, but it does not diminish your worth. A relationship without trust is like a ship without a compass. It has no direction, no stability. You may stay afloat for a while, but eventually you'll drift aimlessly, lost in a sea of doubt and confusion. Stoicism teaches that we must steer our lives with purpose and clarity, but broken trust makes that nearly impossible. The only way to regain control is to let go of the relationship and chart a new course. There is strength in acknowledging when a relationship is no longer serving you. It takes courage to walk away from someone you once trusted, but that courage is necessary for your own growth and well-being. Stoicism teaches that we must prioritize our inner peace, and that means letting go of relationships that threaten to disturb that peace. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's rarely restored to its former strength. The cracks may be mended, but the scars remain. Each time you look at the person who betrayed you, you're reminded of their dishonesty, their lack of integrity, and those reminders prevent the relationship from ever being what it once was. By walking away from a relationship where trust is broken, you're not just protecting yourself from further harm, you're also creating space for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. You're allowing yourself the opportunity to build connections based on mutual respect and honesty, rather than deceit and betrayal. In the end, trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once that foundation is shattered, the structure begins to crumble. You may try to hold it together, but the cracks will always show. Stoicism teaches that we must focus on what truly matters, and in relationships, trust is one of the most important pillars. Without it, the relationship is bound to fall apart. Broken trust is a reminder that not everyone deserves a place in your life. It's a sign that the relationship has run its course and that it's time to move on. Stoicism encourages us to let go of the things that no longer serve us, and broken trust is a clear indication that the relationship no longer serves your well-being. Walking away from broken trust is an act of liberation. It's a declaration that you will no longer tolerate dishonesty, that you value your peace and integrity above all else. It's a difficult decision, but it's one that will ultimately lead you to a life filled with more authenticity, honesty, and trust. Leaving behind a relationship where trust is broken can feel like freeing yourself from a weight you didn't realize you were carrying. It clears space for healthier connections, ones built on mutual respect and honesty. But as you move forward, there is another lurking threat that often remains hidden until it starts to fester: envy and jealousy. These emotions can seem subtle at first, but they have the power to erode even the strongest of relationships from the inside out. When envy and jealousy show up, they often reveal deeper issues of resentment and competition. Stoicism teaches us that these feelings are major red flags, indications that the relationship is no longer safe or supportive for your growth. Envy and jealousy are not just fleeting emotions, they are destructive forces that, if left unchecked, can consume both the person feeling them and the relationship itself. When someone is envious or jealous, it's often because they see something in you, your success, your happiness, your peace, that they want for themselves but don't believe they can achieve. Instead of celebrating your wins or supporting your growth, they quietly resent you for having what they lack. This resentment can turn into passive aggression, criticism, or outright sabotage. In relationships where envy exists, there's always an underlying tension. You may not notice it at first, but over time you start to feel that the person who once celebrated your successes now seems distant or even hostile. Their smiles no longer feel genuine, their compliments tinged with bitterness. Instead of supporting you, they may downplay your achievements, making you feel like your successes are insignificant or undeserved. This subtle erosion of support can leave you feeling confused and uncertain. Stoicism teaches that we must focus on our own growth and not allow external influences to disturb our inner peace. But when envy enters a relationship, it's difficult to maintain that peace. The envious person constantly seeks validation, often through comparison, making it hard for you to feel comfortable sharing your achievements or progress. You may start to downplay your successes just to avoid making them feel insecure, which slowly chips away at your own confidence. Jealousy, like envy, is rooted in insecurity. But while envy is about wanting what someone else has, jealousy is about fearing that what you have will be taken away. In relationships, jealousy often manifests as possessiveness, mistrust, and constant questioning. It creates an environment where you feel like you're under surveillance, as though any step you take could trigger suspicion or anger. This constant feeling of being monitored is emotionally exhausting. Stoicism teaches that true relationships are built on mutual respect, not control. When jealousy enters a relationship, it often signals a lack of trust and respect. The jealous person may try to control your actions, questioning who you spend time with or why you're doing certain things. This desire for control stems from their own insecurity, but it places an unnecessary burden on you, making it difficult to feel free or trusted within the relationship. Envy and jealousy are often fueled by a scarcity mindset, the belief that there's not enough success, love, or happiness to go around. When someone feels envious, they see your achievements as diminishing their own worth. In a healthy relationship, there's room for both people to succeed, but in an envious or jealous relationship, one person's growth becomes a threat to the other. This competition undermines the foundation of the relationship, turning what should be a supportive connection into a rivalry. The Stoics believed in focusing on what is within your control and letting go of what isn't. Envy and jealousy, however, drive people to obsess over what others have, rather than focusing on their own journey. When someone is envious or jealous, they are constantly looking outward, comparing themselves to others instead of working on their own growth. This comparison creates resentment, which inevitably poisons the relationship. In relationships where envy and jealousy exist, you may find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly worried about how your actions will be perceived. You might avoid sharing your good news or downplay your successes to avoid triggering negative reactions. But in doing so, you're not only diminishing your own joy, you're also allowing their insecurities to dictate your behavior. This is not a healthy dynamic, and Stoicism teaches that you should not have to sacrifice your peace for someone else's unresolved issues. Jealousy often leads to accusations and mistrust, which can make you feel like you're constantly being tested. No matter how loyal or transparent you are, the jealous person will always find a reason to doubt you. This cycle of suspicion creates an environment of tension and stress, where you feel like you're constantly trying to prove your innocence. Over time, this wears down your emotional resilience, leaving you drained and frustrated. Stoicism reminds us that we are not responsible for the emotions of others, especially when those emotions stem from envy or jealousy. You cannot fix someone else's insecurity, nor can you control how they react to your successes or relationships. It's important to recognize when these toxic emotions are taking over the relationship, and to understand that cutting ties may be the only way to protect your own peace. When envy and jealousy go unchecked, they can lead to manipulation. The envious person may try to undermine your confidence, subtly discouraging you from pursuing opportunities or taking risks. They may frame their discouragement as concern, but underneath, it's driven by a desire to keep you from surpassing them. This manipulation erodes your self-belief, making you question your own capabilities. In relationships where jealousy is present, you may find yourself constantly reassuring the other person, trying to calm their fears or insecurities. But no matter how much reassurance you provide, it's never enough. Their jealousy is a reflection of their own unresolved issues, not your actions. Over time, this need for constant validation becomes exhausting, draining your emotional energy and leaving little room for your own needs. Stoicism teaches that we must focus on what truly matters: our values, our growth, and our inner peace. Relationships rooted in envy and jealousy distract from that focus, pulling you into a cycle of competition, comparison, and control. These emotions are destructive because they prevent both people from experiencing genuine joy and fulfillment. Instead of celebrating each other's successes, you're caught in a web of resentment and fear. Envy can also lead to passive-aggressive behavior. Instead of directly addressing their feelings, the envious person may make sarcastic comments or give backhanded compliments. These subtle digs are designed to chip away at your confidence, making you feel like your accomplishments aren't as impressive as they really are. Over time, this constant undermining can erode your self-esteem. Jealousy, on the other hand, can lead to controlling behavior. The jealous person may try to limit your interactions with others, demanding more of your time and attention as a way to feel secure. This control may start subtly, with requests to spend more time together, but it can quickly escalate into isolation, where you feel cut off from friends and family. This is a clear red flag that the relationship has become toxic. The Stoics believed that external factors should not dictate our happiness. But when you're in a relationship where envy and jealousy are present, it becomes increasingly difficult to find joy. These emotions create a cloud of negativity that hangs over everything, making it hard to appreciate the good in your life. Instead of feeling uplifted by your partner or friend, you feel weighed down by their resentment. Envy and jealousy also create a sense of competition where there should be cooperation. Instead of working together to build each other up, the relationship becomes a game of one-upmanship. This constant need to outdo each other creates tension and mistrust, as neither person feels secure in the relationship. Over time, this competition erodes the bond you once shared. In relationships where envy and jealousy are allowed to grow, both people end up feeling unfulfilled. The envious person never feels satisfied because they're constantly comparing themselves to others, and the person being envied feels unsupported and isolated. Stoicism teaches that we should seek relationships that encourage growth and fulfillment, but envy and jealousy prevent this from happening. When envy and jealousy take root, they often lead to bitterness. The envious person begins to resent not just your successes, but your very presence. Instead of celebrating your happiness, they see it as a reminder of what they lack. This bitterness can turn into anger, leading to outbursts or conflicts that seem to come out of nowhere. These conflicts create an environment of hostility, making it difficult to maintain any sense of peace. In relationships where jealousy exists, trust is often the first casualty. The jealous person may accuse you of things you haven't done, projecting their own insecurities onto you. This lack of trust creates a barrier between you, preventing any real connection from forming. Without trust, the relationship becomes a minefield, where every step feels like it could trigger another argument. Stoicism teaches that we must let go of things that disturb our inner peace. Relationships filled with envy and jealousy are a constant source of disturbance. No matter how hard you try to make things better, the underlying issues remain. The envious or jealous person is not looking for resolution. They are looking for validation, and no amount of reassurance will ever satisfy them. In relationships where envy and jealousy are present, you may find yourself losing touch with your own values and goals. You become so focused on managing their emotions that you neglect your own needs. Over time, this leads to resentment on your part, as you realize that you've sacrificed your own happiness for the sake of maintaining the relationship. Envy and jealousy can also manifest as possessiveness. The jealous person may try to control who you spend time with, where you go, or what you do. This possessiveness is a clear sign that the relationship has become unhealthy. Instead of feeling supported, you feel trapped, as though your every move is being monitored. Stoicism reminds us that relationships should bring us peace, not conflict. Envy and jealousy, however, create a constant state of tension, where you're always trying to manage the other person's emotions. This is not a sustainable dynamic. The longer you stay in a relationship where these emotions are present, the more your own peace and happiness will be compromised. When envy and jealousy go unchecked, they can lead to a breakdown in communication. Instead of talking openly about feelings, the envious or jealous person may shut down, refusing to engage in meaningful conversation. This lack of communication creates distance between you, making it difficult to resolve any issues or move forward in a healthy way. Stoicism teaches that we must value relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding, but envy and jealousy prevent this from happening. These emotions create a power struggle where one person is constantly trying to assert dominance over the other. This imbalance of power is not conducive to a healthy, supportive relationship. As you move forward, it's important to recognize the red flags of envy and jealousy in your relationships. These emotions are not harmless. They are destructive forces that can tear apart even the strongest bonds. By cutting ties with those who bring envy and jealousy into your life, you're choosing to protect your own peace and well-being. You're choosing relationships that uplift and support you, rather than ones that drag you down. As envy and jealousy begin to unravel the threads of a relationship, the damage often runs deeper than you realize. These emotions, when left unchecked, erode the very foundation of mutual respect and trust. But there's an even more insidious force that can quietly dismantle your sense of self: when someone actively diminishes your worth. It's subtle at first, disguised as jokes, offhand remarks, or seemingly innocent critiques. Yet over time, these comments and behaviors start to gnaw away at your confidence, leaving you questioning your value. Recognizing when someone is undermining your self-worth is crucial, and Stoic philosophy offers profound guidance on how to protect yourself by cutting ties with those who tear you down. When someone is diminishing your self-worth, it doesn't always come in the form of direct insults. It's often much quieter, slipping into conversations through backhanded compliments or sarcastic remarks. These small digs, though they may seem harmless at first, slowly begin to take root. You might laugh them off or brush them aside, thinking it's not a big deal. But as they accumulate, they start to chip away at how you see yourself, planting seeds of doubt where confidence once grew. One of the first signs that someone is undermining your self-esteem is that you start to feel uncertain about your own accomplishments. They may subtly downplay your successes, making you feel like what you've achieved isn't as impressive as it truly is. This constant minimization leaves you second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're truly capable or if you've just been lucky. Over time, you may begin to internalize this doubt, believing that your achievements don't really matter. Stoicism teaches us that our value comes from within, not from the opinions of others. But when someone consistently diminishes your worth, it's hard not to absorb their negativity. You start to rely on their approval, seeking validation from someone who has no intention of giving it. This creates a toxic cycle where you become more and more dependent on their opinion, even though their opinion is designed to keep you feeling small. The person who undermines your self-worth often does so under the guise of helping you. They may say things like, "I'm just being honest," or "I'm trying to help you improve." But their so-called honesty is laced with criticism, and their help is a mask for control. Instead of building you up, they tear you down, leaving you feeling inadequate and unsure of yourself. Another sign that someone is diminishing your self-worth is that you start to feel anxious around them. You may find yourself overanalyzing every interaction, wondering if you said something wrong or if they're silently judging you. This constant state of anxiety erodes your sense of self, making you feel like you're never good enough. No matter how hard you try, it seems like you're always falling short in their eyes. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we should not base our self-worth on external validation. Our value comes from living in accordance with our own principles and virtues, not from the approval or disapproval of others. But when someone consistently undermines your self-esteem, it's easy to lose sight of this truth. You start to doubt your own worth and seek reassurance from someone who has no interest in truly supporting you. In relationships where your self-worth is being diminished, you may notice that your opinions are often dismissed or ridiculed. The person may interrupt you, talk over you, or outright ignore what you have to say. This constant invalidation of your thoughts and feelings sends a clear message. Your voice doesn't matter. Over time, you may stop speaking up altogether, believing that your contributions are not worth sharing. The impact of someone diminishing your self-worth extends far beyond the relationship itself. It affects how you view yourself in every aspect of your life. You may start to doubt your abilities at work, in friendships, or even in your personal goals. This erosion of confidence makes it difficult to pursue the things that once brought you joy and fulfillment. You become trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, afraid to take risks or step outside your comfort zone. Stoicism encourages us to cultivate a strong sense of self, one that is not easily swayed by the opinions of others. But when someone is constantly chipping away at your self-esteem, it becomes harder to maintain that inner strength. Their negativity becomes a constant presence, clouding your thoughts and making you question your worth. It's at this point that Stoicism advises us to distance ourselves from those who do not respect our value. The person who diminishes your self-worth may also engage in comparison, frequently pointing out how others are better than you in some way. Whether it's in terms of career, appearance, or relationships, they find ways to make you feel like you're always falling short. This constant comparison not only undermines your confidence, but also creates a sense of inadequacy that's difficult to shake. Another tactic used by those who diminish your self-worth is to undermine your decisions. They may question your choices, suggest that you're being irrational, or make you feel like you're incapable of making good decisions on your own. This constant questioning leaves you feeling unsure of yourself, hesitant to trust your own judgment. Over time, you may find yourself relying on them more and more for guidance, even though their guidance is meant to keep you dependent on them. Stoicism teaches that we must trust in our own judgment and abilities, but when someone is constantly undermining your decisions, it becomes difficult to do so. You start to doubt your intuition, second-guessing every choice you make. This self-doubt can paralyze you, preventing you from taking action or pursuing the things that matter most to you. One of the most harmful aspects of someone diminishing your self-worth is that it's often done subtly, making it hard to recognize at first. They may frame their criticism as concern, saying things like, "I just want what's best for you," or "I'm only saying this because I care." But beneath these words lies an intent to control, to keep you feeling small and dependent on their approval. In relationships where your self-worth is being diminished, you may start to feel isolated. The person may subtly discourage you from spending time with friends or pursuing your own interests, making you feel like you're not capable of handling things on your own. This isolation deepens your dependence on them, making it harder to see the impact they're having on your confidence and self-esteem. Stoicism reminds us that we are responsible for our own happiness and well-being. But when someone is constantly diminishing your self-worth, it's easy to lose sight of this. You may start to believe that your happiness depends on their approval, that you need their validation to feel worthy. This is a dangerous mindset, as it places your sense of self in the hands of someone who does not have your best interests at heart. Recognizing when someone is diminishing your self-worth requires self-awareness. You must be willing to look closely at the relationship and ask yourself whether it's truly supportive of your growth and well-being. If you find that you're constantly feeling inadequate, anxious, or unsure of yourself around this person, it's a clear sign that the relationship is not serving you. The Stoics believed that we must surround ourselves with people who encourage our growth, not those who hold us back. If someone is consistently undermining your confidence and self-esteem, they are not contributing to your growth. They are stifling it. It's important to recognize this and take action to distance yourself from their influence. When someone diminishes your self-worth, it can be difficult to break free from the relationship. You may feel like you need their approval or that you're not capable of succeeding without their guidance. But Stoicism teaches us that we are capable of far more than we realize. You don't need their validation to succeed. You don't need their approval to feel worthy. Your value comes from within, not from their assessment of you. Cutting ties with someone who diminishes your self-worth is an act of self-respect. It's a declaration that you will no longer allow someone to make you feel small, to undermine your confidence, or to control your sense of self. It's a difficult decision, but it's one that will ultimately lead to greater freedom, happiness, and self-empowerment. Stoicism reminds us that we must take responsibility for our own well-being. If someone is consistently diminishing your self-worth, it's up to you to protect yourself. You cannot change their behavior, but you can choose to remove yourself from the situation. By doing so, you create space for healthier relationships that uplift and support you rather than tear you down. As you move forward, it's important to rebuild your sense of self-worth. This requires time, patience, and self-compassion. You may have spent so long seeking validation from someone else that you've forgotten how to trust yourself. But Stoicism teaches that true confidence comes from within. By focusing on your own growth, values, and principles, you can rebuild your self-esteem and rediscover your own worth. When you cut ties with someone who diminishes your self-worth, you're not just freeing yourself from their negativity, you're reclaiming your life. You're taking back control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions. You're choosing to live in alignment with your true self, rather than constantly seeking approval from someone who never had your best interests at heart. Stoicism teaches that we must cultivate relationships that nurture our growth and well-being. By removing those who diminish your self-worth, you're creating space for relationships that are based on mutual respect, support, and encouragement. These are the relationships that will help you grow, thrive, and achieve your fullest potential. The journey to reclaiming your self-worth may not be easy, but it is one of the most important steps you can take in your personal growth. By recognizing the signs of someone who diminishes your self-esteem and taking action to distance yourself, you're choosing to prioritize your own well-being. This is a powerful act of self-love, one that will lead to greater confidence, freedom, and happiness. As you regain control of your self-worth by distancing yourself from those who diminish it, a new level of clarity emerges. You start to see your value, the strength that comes from within, and how others should treat you with respect. Yet, even with this awareness, there's another subtle threat that often masquerades as connection: the exploitation of your kindness. Some people will take advantage of your generosity, using your compassion as a tool for their own gain. Stoicism teaches the importance of balancing kindness with wisdom, knowing when your good nature is being used against you. Recognizing the difference between being kind and being taken for granted is vital for protecting your peace and self-respect. Exploitation of kindness doesn't always appear in obvious ways. It can start small, with someone asking for favors, leaning on you during difficult times, or requesting your help with no intention of reciprocating. These requests may seem harmless at first, but over time they begin to add up. You notice that while you're always there for them, they're rarely there for you. Their needs and desires take priority, while yours are brushed aside or forgotten entirely. A person who exploits your kindness often relies on your empathy. They know you care deeply about others and use this to their advantage. They may play the victim, constantly needing your support, time and energy, while offering little in return. This unbalanced dynamic slowly drains you, leaving you feeling exhausted, unappreciated, and even resentful. Yet, because you are kind-hearted, you continue to give, hoping that one day they'll recognize and appreciate your efforts. Stoicism teaches that true compassion must be rooted in wisdom. It's not about giving endlessly without thought. It's about knowing when to give and when to step back. When someone exploits your kindness, they are not interested in mutual support or connection. They are interested in what they can take from you. This type of relationship leaves you empty, constantly pouring into someone who has no intention of pouring back. One of the key signs that someone is exploiting your kindness is a lack of appreciation. No matter how much you do for them, it never seems to be enough. They may thank you in passing or show brief gratitude, but it's clear that they expect your help as a given, not as something to be valued. Over time, this sense of entitlement grows, and you find yourself giving more and more while receiving less and less in return. In relationships where your kindness is exploited, there is often a lack of reciprocity. You may find yourself doing favors, offering emotional support, or going out of your way to make their life easier. But when you need help or support, they're nowhere to be found. This imbalance is a clear indication that your kindness is being used for personal gain. Instead of being in a relationship based on mutual care, you're stuck in one where you are constantly giving and they are constantly taking. Stoicism teaches that we must protect our peace, even in the face of those who seem to need our help. While it's natural to want to assist others, it's essential to recognize when your kindness is being taken for granted. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect and shared effort. When someone consistently benefits from your compassion without giving anything in return, they are not honoring that balance. People who exploit your kindness often use guilt as a tool to keep you giving. They may remind you of how much they've been through or how much they need you, making you feel responsible for their well-being. This manipulation is designed to keep you in a cycle of giving, even when it's clear that your kindness is not being appreciated. Over time, this guilt wears you down, making it difficult to set boundaries or say no. Setting boundaries is a key part of preventing exploitation. When someone consistently takes advantage of your kindness, it's essential to establish clear limits. You have every right to protect your energy and time, to say no when you feel overextended, and to expect reciprocity in your relationships. Stoicism teaches that wisdom lies in knowing when to give and when to hold back. It's not unkind to protect yourself. It's necessary for your well-being. Exploitation of kindness often leaves you feeling drained, both emotionally and physically. The more you give, the less energy you have for yourself and your own needs. Over time, this depletion takes a toll, making it harder to focus on your own goals and priorities. Instead of feeling fulfilled by helping others, you start to feel resentful, as though your kindness has become a burden rather than a gift. When someone exploits your kindness, they often use flattery or charm to keep you engaged. They may compliment your generosity, telling you how much they appreciate you, but these words are hollow. Their actions don't match their praise. Instead of showing true appreciation through reciprocity, they continue to take without giving, leaving you in a cycle of constant giving with little in return. Stoicism teaches that we must act with intention, not out of obligation or guilt. When your kindness is exploited, it's easy to feel obligated to keep giving, even when it's clear that the relationship is one-sided. But true compassion is not about sacrificing yourself for the sake of others. It's about giving from a place of strength, where your kindness is appreciated and reciprocated. When this balance is not present, it's time to reconsider the relationship. Another sign of exploitation is when someone only reaches out to you when they need something. You may notice that the majority of your interactions are centered around their needs, with little regard for your own. They rarely check in to see how you're doing, and when they do, it's often a prelude to asking for something. This pattern of behavior shows that they see you as a resource, not as a friend or partner. Exploitation can also come in the form of emotional labor. You may find yourself constantly supporting someone through their struggles, offering advice, encouragement, and a listening ear. But when you need the same support, they are unavailable. This imbalance leaves you feeling used, as though your emotional energy is being drained without any consideration for your own well-being. Stoicism teaches that we must prioritize our inner peace and protect ourselves from those who would take advantage of our kindness. When someone consistently takes without giving, they are disrupting that peace. It's important to recognize when your kindness is being exploited and to take steps to protect yourself. This may mean setting boundaries, reducing contact, or even cutting ties with those who do not respect your generosity. Exploitation often leaves you questioning your own worth. You may start to wonder if your kindness is truly valuable or if you're just being used. Over time, this self-doubt can erode your confidence, making it harder to trust others or to feel secure in your relationships. Stoicism reminds us that our value comes from within, not from how much we give to others. You are worthy of respect and appreciation, regardless of how much you do for others. In relationships where your kindness is exploited, you may feel like you're walking a fine line between being helpful and being taken advantage of. It's important to remember that kindness should never come at the cost of your own well-being. You have the right to protect your energy, to set boundaries, and to expect reciprocity in your relationships. When this balance is not present, it's a clear sign that something needs to change. People who exploit your kindness often rely on your fear of confrontation. They know that you're kind-hearted and may avoid difficult conversations, so they continue to take advantage, knowing you won't push back. Stoicism teaches that we must have the courage to stand up for ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable. By addressing the imbalance and setting boundaries, you're not being unkind, you're protecting your peace. Exploitation can also take the form of financial strain. You may find yourself lending money, paying for things, or otherwise supporting someone financially without any reciprocation. Over time, this financial burden can add up, leaving you feeling taken advantage of. Stoicism teaches that we must manage our resources wisely, including our time, energy, and finances. If someone is consistently draining your resources without giving anything in return, it's time to reevaluate the relationship. In some cases, exploitation of kindness can be subtle, making it difficult to recognize at first. You may feel like you're just being helpful or that the person truly needs your support. But over time, the imbalance becomes clear. You start to realize that while you're always there for them, they're never there for you. This realization can be painful, but it's also an important step toward protecting your well-being. Stoicism reminds us that kindness should come from a place of strength, not from a place of obligation or guilt. When someone exploits your kindness, they are not honoring the gift you are offering. Instead, they are using it for their own gain, without any consideration for your needs. It's important to recognize this imbalance and to take steps to protect yourself, whether that means setting boundaries or cutting ties altogether. One of the hardest parts of dealing with exploitation is the realization that the person may never change. You may hope that they'll start to appreciate your kindness or that they'll begin to give back in the relationship, but Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control. You cannot change someone else's behavior, but you can choose how much of yourself you're willing to give. When the relationship is unbalanced, it's up to you to protect your peace. Exploitation can also manifest in the form of emotional manipulation. The person may use your empathy against you, making you feel guilty for not helping them or for setting boundaries. This manipulation is designed to keep you in a cycle of giving, even when it's clear that your kindness is being taken for granted. Stoicism teaches that we must act with reason, not emotion, and that we have the right to protect ourselves from those who seek to exploit our good nature. When someone consistently exploits your kindness, it can leave you feeling resentful. You may start to feel angry or frustrated, not just with them, but with yourself for allowing the situation to continue. Stoicism teaches that we must take responsibility for our own well-being. If someone is taking advantage of your kindness, it's up to you to set boundaries and protect your peace. This is not an act of selfishness, it's an act of self-respect. As you begin to recognize the signs of exploitation, it's important to take action. This may mean having difficult conversations, setting clear boundaries, or even cutting ties with those who do not respect your kindness. Stoicism teaches that we must prioritize our inner peace and protect ourselves from those who would take advantage of our good nature. By doing so, you're choosing to honor your own worth and to surround yourself with relationships that are based on mutual respect and reciprocity. As you free yourself from the grip of those who exploit your kindness, you begin to regain control over your energy, peace, and sense of worth. But even as you distance yourself from those who take advantage, another, often quieter threat looms, one that can damage not just your relationships, but your reputation and character. Gossip and slander are dangerous forces that, while often disguised as harmless chatter, can unravel your integrity and leave lasting scars. When someone spreads rumors or disrespects your character behind your back, it reveals their disloyalty and negativity. Stoicism teaches us the importance of preserving our integrity by steering clear of those who indulge in gossip or slander, as such behavior only leads to conflict, distrust, and dishonor. Gossip may start as idle conversation, but its impact can ripple far beyond the words spoken in passing. It begins with subtle hints, whispered opinions, or casual remarks about others' lives. But as these words spread, they morph into harmful distortions of the truth. The more someone gossips, the more they reveal about themselves, their lack of loyalty, their willingness to manipulate information, and their disregard for the consequences of their words. When you find yourself in the company of someone who frequently gossips, it's easy to get swept up in the allure of shared secrets and inside information. It can feel like a bonding experience, one that gives you a glimpse into the lives of others. But Stoicism warns against indulging in such conversations. Engaging in gossip not only lowers your moral standards, but also aligns you with disloyalty and deceit. The more you participate, the more you become complicit in spreading negativity. Gossip thrives on the assumption that the person being spoken about will never hear what's being said. This false sense of security encourages people to speak freely, without regard for the harm they might cause. But words, once spoken, cannot be undone. Stoicism teaches that our speech should always reflect honesty and integrity. When someone gossips or slanders, they not only harm the person they're talking about, but they also harm their own character, revealing a lack of honor. One of the most damaging effects of gossip and slander is how it erodes trust. If someone is willing to speak negatively about others behind their backs, it's only a matter of time before they do the same to you. Over time, you may begin to realize that the person who gossips to you will also gossip about you. This realization breeds a sense of unease, as you can never be sure where you stand with them or what they might say about you when you're not around. Stoicism teaches that we should focus on what we can control, and one of the most important things we can control is our integrity. Engaging in gossip or tolerating those who slander others puts your integrity at risk. By surrounding yourself with people who indulge in gossip, you're indirectly supporting their behavior, even if you don't actively participate. The longer you stay in their company, the more likely it is that their negative habits will start to influence your own. When someone spreads rumors or disrespects your character, they are showing you who they truly are, someone who values drama over loyalty and dishonor over honesty. It's tempting to try and defend yourself or correct the narrative, but Stoicism advises against getting caught up in the chaos of gossip. The more you engage, the more entangled you become in a cycle of negativity and conflict. Instead, the best course of action is to distance yourself from those who seek to bring you down. The damage caused by gossip and slander isn't just limited to the relationships it affects. It also harms the person who indulges in it. Over time, people who gossip earn a reputation for being untrustworthy and disloyal. Their words lose credibility, and others begin to avoid confiding in them, knowing that anything they say could be turned into fodder for the next round of gossip. In this way, gossip not only destroys relationships, but also isolates the person who engages in it. Stoicism values the importance of cultivating relationships based on trust, respect, and integrity. When you're around people who gossip, it's difficult to build these types of relationships. The focus is constantly shifted to the shortcomings or private matters of others, rather than on meaningful, uplifting conversations. This creates an environment of mistrust, where everyone is constantly wondering who will be the next target of gossip or slander. One of the clearest signs that someone is not loyal or trustworthy is their willingness to engage in slander. When someone speaks negatively about others, especially in ways that are meant to harm their reputation, it's a clear indication of their lack of character. Stoicism teaches us to avoid these types of individuals because their behavior will inevitably lead to unnecessary conflict and dishonor. The impact of slander on your character is profound. When someone speaks ill of you behind your back, it can feel like an attack on your very identity. You may begin to question your own actions, wondering if there is any truth to what's being said. But Stoicism reminds us that we must not allow the opinions of others to dictate our sense of self. Your character is defined by your actions and your integrity, not by the falsehoods spread by those who seek to bring you down. When someone gossips or slanders others, they are inviting you into a world of negativity. The more time you spend with them, the more likely you are to get drawn into their web of deceit. This not only affects your relationships, but also tarnishes your own reputation. Stoicism teaches that we must guard our honor fiercely, and one of the best ways to do that is by cutting ties with those who seek to damage your character or the character of others. In relationships where gossip and slander are common, you may start to notice a pattern of manipulation. The person who gossips often uses information as a tool to gain power or influence over others. They may share secrets or rumors in an attempt to control how people perceive certain individuals. This manipulation is dangerous, as it creates an environment of mistrust and division. Stoicism teaches that true strength lies in honesty and integrity, not in manipulating others for personal gain. One of the most harmful aspects of gossip and slander is that it encourages division. Instead of fostering unity and understanding, gossip creates rifts between people, often based on misunderstandings or outright lies. The person who engages in gossip may seem charming or well-intentioned, but their actions are designed to sow discord. Over time, this division leads to broken relationships, hurt feelings, and a general sense of unease within the group. Stoicism reminds us that we should avoid getting caught up in the drama of others. When someone gossips or slanders, they are inviting you into their drama, hoping to pull you into their negativity. But engaging in these conversations only serves to feed the cycle of gossip, creating more conflict and dishonor. By cutting ties with those who indulge in gossip, you are choosing to preserve your peace and protect your character. Gossip and slander often have a ripple effect. What starts as a small comment or rumor can quickly spread, affecting how others see you or someone else. This ripple effect can be difficult to contain, as the more people hear the gossip, the more distorted the original message becomes. Stoicism teaches that we must not allow external events to disturb our inner peace, but when someone spreads rumors about you, it's hard not to feel the sting of betrayal. One of the most difficult aspects of dealing with gossip is the temptation to retaliate. When someone spreads falsehoods about you, your first instinct may be to defend yourself or to counter with your own accusations. But Stoicism teaches that true strength lies in restraint. By refusing to engage in gossip or slander, even in your own defense, you are preserving your honor and demonstrating a higher level of integrity. When someone gossips or slanders, they are often projecting their own insecurities or shortcomings onto others. By tearing someone else down, they hope to elevate themselves, even if only temporarily. This behavior is not only destructive, but also deeply rooted in insecurity. Stoicism teaches that we must rise above the pettiness of others and focus on cultivating our own character, rather than getting caught up in the negativity of those who seek to bring others down. In relationships where gossip and slander are present, trust is eroded at every turn. You may find yourself questioning whether you can truly confide in someone, knowing that anything you say could be twisted and shared with others. This lack of trust makes it difficult to form meaningful connections, as you're constantly guarding yourself against potential betrayal. Stoicism reminds us that relationships should be based on trust and respect, not on the fear of gossip or slander. The person who gossips often does so under the guise of concern or curiosity. They may frame their negative comments as just trying to help or as sharing what they heard, but underneath, their true intentions are clear. They are not interested in helping or resolving issues. They are interested in stirring the pot, in creating drama for their own entertainment. Stoicism teaches that we must recognize this behavior for what it is and distance ourselves from those who engage in it. When you find yourself in the company of someone who frequently gossips, it's important to recognize the impact their words are having on your own character. Even if you're not actively participating, just being present while they gossip makes you complicit in their behavior. Over time, this association can damage your reputation and your integrity. Stoicism teaches that we must be mindful of the company we keep, as the behaviors and attitudes of those around us can influence our own actions. Cutting ties with someone who engages in gossip or slander is not just about protecting your reputation, it's about preserving your inner peace. Gossip creates an environment of negativity where trust is eroded and drama thrives. By distancing yourself from those who indulge in gossip, you are choosing to protect your own mental and emotional well-being, allowing yourself to focus on relationships that are built on trust, respect, and integrity. The damage caused by gossip and slander can be long-lasting. Even after the rumors have died down, the effects may linger, as people continue to question your character or the character of those involved. Stoicism teaches that we must not dwell on the opinions of others, but it's difficult to ignore the harm caused by falsehoods. The best way to protect yourself is to avoid engaging with those who seek to spread negativity in the first place. When someone engages in slander, they are actively trying to harm another person's reputation. This malicious intent reveals a lack of character and integrity that should not be ignored. Stoicism teaches that we must hold ourselves to a higher standard, choosing honesty and loyalty over deceit and drama. By cutting ties with those who engage in slander, you are choosing to align yourself with values that promote peace and honor, rather than conflict and dishonor. One of the most powerful lessons from Stoicism is the importance of preserving our inner peace, even in the face of external chaos. Gossip and slander create chaos, both in your relationships and in your mind. By choosing to distance yourself from those who indulge in such behavior, you are actively choosing peace over conflict, integrity over dishonor, and loyalty over disloyalty. This choice is not always easy, but it is essential for preserving your character and your sense of self. After recognizing the destructive nature of gossip and slander, you've likely developed a keen awareness of how words can erode trust and damage relationships. However, there's another, subtler form of manipulation that can be just as exhausting: dealing with people who constantly play the victim. While gossip spreads negativity outward, self-victimization turns it inward, drawing you into a vortex of endless complaints, excuses, and blame-shifting. These individuals often refuse to take responsibility for their actions, expecting others to bear the weight of their struggles. Stoicism teaches that personal responsibility is the cornerstone of resilience, but those who perpetually victimize themselves drain not only their own energy, but yours as well. For your well-being, understanding how to handle such individuals, and sometimes cutting ties, is essential. Self-victimization often comes disguised as helplessness. The person may present themselves as someone who has been wronged by the world, constantly suffering at the hands of unfair circumstances or people. On the surface, it can seem like they're simply going through a difficult time. But over time, a pattern emerges. Every situation, no matter how small, becomes another chapter in their endless story of personal tragedy. These individuals never seem to rise above their difficulties. Instead, they wallow in them, expecting others to constantly offer sympathy, support, and solutions. When you engage with someone who frequently plays the victim, it can feel like you're walking on a tightrope. No matter what advice or assistance you offer, they find a way to reject it. Instead of taking action to change their circumstances, they focus on what's gone wrong or how others have failed them. This constant refusal to take responsibility creates an unbalanced dynamic, where you're left carrying their emotional burdens without any progress being made. Stoicism emphasizes personal responsibility as the foundation for inner peace and growth. However, those who engage in self-victimization reject this principle entirely. They see themselves as passive recipients of life's misfortunes, rather than as active participants in shaping their own destiny. By constantly casting themselves as the victim, they absolve themselves of any accountability for their actions or choices, shifting the blame onto others or external circumstances. One of the most draining aspects of dealing with someone who plays the victim is the emotional toll it takes on you. Their constant complaints, combined with their refusal to take action, create an exhausting cycle of negativity. You may find yourself repeatedly offering advice, support, or solutions, only to watch as they dismiss your efforts. This cycle leaves you feeling frustrated, as though no matter how much you give, it's never enough to pull them out of their victim mindset. People who constantly victimize themselves often rely on others for validation. They seek out sympathy and attention, using their hardships as a way to gain emotional support without ever addressing the root causes of their problems. This behavior can quickly become manipulative as they learn that playing the victim garners them the attention and care they crave. Over time, you may notice that their crises seem never-ending, as though they need the drama of victimhood to sustain their sense of self. Stoicism teaches that true strength lies in facing life's challenges with resilience and responsibility. However, people who constantly victimize themselves avoid this path. Instead of taking ownership of their lives, they expect others to bear the weight of their struggles. This dependency creates a toxic dynamic where you feel responsible for their well-being, even though they refuse to take the steps necessary to improve their situation. Another hallmark of self-victimization is the refusal to acknowledge personal agency. These individuals often speak as though everything happens to them, rather than acknowledging the role their choices or actions may have played in creating their circumstances. This refusal to accept personal responsibility not only limits their ability to grow, but also places an unfair burden on you, as you're left trying to fix problems they won't address. In relationships where one person constantly plays the victim, conflict resolution becomes nearly impossible. The victimized individual rarely takes accountability for their role in disagreements or challenges. Instead, they shift the blame onto others, making it difficult to have honest conversations about how to move forward. This lack of accountability creates a stagnant environment where problems are never truly resolved and the cycle of victimhood continues. Over time, the emotional toll of dealing with a self-victimizer becomes overwhelming. You may start to feel like you're constantly being pulled into their crises with no end in sight. This sense of being trapped in someone else's problems leaves little room for your own well-being. You might find yourself feeling drained, frustrated, or even resentful, as though your energy is being depleted by their endless need for sympathy. Stoicism teaches the importance of setting boundaries, especially when someone's behavior begins to disrupt your inner peace. With individuals who constantly victimize themselves, setting boundaries is essential for protecting your emotional health. You cannot fix their problems for them, nor can you carry their burdens indefinitely. By establishing clear boundaries, you're not abandoning them. You're allowing them the space to take responsibility for their own lives. Self-victimization also creates an unhealthy dynamic of dependency. The more you engage with someone who plays the victim, the more they come to rely on you for emotional support. This dependency can quickly become suffocating, as they turn to you for validation and sympathy rather than finding ways to empower themselves. Over time, this one-sided dynamic can strain the relationship, leaving you feeling more like a caretaker than a friend or partner. It's important to recognize that self-victimization is often a form of manipulation, even if the person isn't fully aware of it. By constantly framing themselves as the victim, they shift the responsibility for their happiness or well-being onto others. This manipulation makes it difficult to maintain a balanced relationship, as you're always expected to be the one offering solutions, support, or comfort while they remain passive. When someone constantly plays the victim, it can also affect your own mindset. You may start to feel like you're failing them, as though you're not doing enough to help. This sense of guilt can weigh heavily on you, making it difficult to set boundaries or step back. However, Stoicism teaches that you are not responsible for someone else's refusal to take action. Your role is not to solve their problems, but to maintain your own peace and integrity. Self-victimization can also create a toxic atmosphere where negativity thrives. The more someone dwells on their misfortunes without taking action, the more their perspective becomes clouded by pessimism. This negativity can be contagious, pulling you into their worldview and making it difficult to maintain a positive or solution-oriented mindset. Over time, this can erode your own resilience, leaving you feeling weighed down by their constant complaints. Stoicism reminds us that we must protect our inner peace, even in the face of others' suffering. While it's natural to want to help those who are struggling, there is a limit to how much you can give before it starts to harm your own well-being. When someone refuses to take responsibility for their life and constantly expects you to carry their burdens, it's a sign that the relationship is no longer healthy. People who play the victim often use their hardships as a shield to deflect criticism or accountability. They may react defensively when confronted, insisting that their circumstances are beyond their control and that they are simply unlucky. This refusal to engage in honest self-reflection makes it nearly impossible to have meaningful conversations about growth or change, as they are more focused on maintaining their victim narrative than on finding solutions. When you're in a relationship with someone who constantly plays the victim, it's easy to become emotionally drained. Their endless complaints, combined with their refusal to take action, create a sense of helplessness. No matter how much support you offer, it never seems to be enough to lift them out of their self-imposed misery. Over time, this dynamic can lead to burnout, as you feel increasingly overwhelmed by their constant need for validation. Stoicism teaches that true growth comes from facing challenges head-on, not from avoiding them. However, self-victimizers avoid responsibility by shifting the blame onto others or external circumstances. This avoidance not only prevents them from growing, but also creates a toxic cycle where they expect others to solve their problems for them. In the long run, this dynamic is unsustainable, as it places an unfair burden on those around them. One of the most difficult aspects of dealing with someone who constantly plays the victim is recognizing when it's time to step back. You may feel a strong sense of loyalty or compassion, wanting to help them overcome their struggles. However, Stoicism teaches that you cannot help someone who refuses to help themselves. At a certain point, it becomes necessary to prioritize your own well-being and let go of the relationship if it's causing you harm. When someone constantly plays the victim, it can also create a sense of resentment. You may start to feel frustrated by their refusal to take action or by their endless need for sympathy. Over time, this resentment can erode the relationship, making it difficult to maintain any sense of closeness or connection. Stoicism teaches that resentment is a sign that boundaries need to be set and that it's time to reassess the dynamics of the relationship. In relationships where self-victimization is present, there is often a lack of personal accountability. The person who plays the victim may never take ownership of their role in creating or perpetuating their problems. This lack of accountability not only stunts their own growth, but also places an unfair burden on you, as you're left trying to navigate their constant complaints and crises without any real resolution. Self-victimization can also make it difficult to have honest conversations about the relationship. When someone is constantly focused on their own hardships, they may be unwilling or unable to engage in meaningful discussions about how their behavior affects others. This lack of communication creates a barrier between you, making it difficult to address the underlying issues in the relationship. Stoicism teaches that we must approach life with resilience and a sense of responsibility. When someone refuses to take accountability for their life, it creates an imbalance in the relationship. Instead of working together to navigate challenges, you're left carrying the weight of their struggles while they remain passive. This imbalance is unsustainable and ultimately leads to frustration and exhaustion. One of the key signs that someone is playing the victim is their refusal to acknowledge their own agency. They may speak as though they have no control over their circumstances, framing themselves as powerless in the face of adversity. This mindset not only limits their ability to grow, but also places an unfair burden on those around them, as they expect others to take on the responsibility for their well-being. When someone constantly plays the victim, it can be tempting to try and fix their problems for them. However, Stoicism teaches that we cannot control the actions or decisions of others. You cannot solve someone else's problems if they are unwilling to take responsibility for their own life. At a certain point, it becomes necessary to step back and allow them to face the consequences of their choices. In relationships where self-victimization is present, you may find yourself constantly offering advice or solutions, only to have them rejected. The person who plays the victim is not interested in finding solutions. They are interested in maintaining their narrative of helplessness. This rejection of solutions can be incredibly frustrating, as it leaves you feeling like nothing you do or say will ever be enough. Stoicism reminds us that we must focus on what we can control: our own actions, decisions, and emotions. When someone constantly plays the victim, it's easy to get caught up in their drama and lose sight of your own needs. However, it's important to remember that you are not responsible for their happiness or their choices. By setting boundaries and protecting your peace, you are prioritizing your own well-being. Ultimately, dealing with someone who constantly victimizes themselves can be emotionally draining and unsustainable. While it's natural to want to help those who are struggling, it's important to recognize when their behavior is harmful to your well-being. Stoicism teaches that personal responsibility is the key to resilience and growth. If someone refuses to take accountability and expects you to shoulder their burdens, it's a clear sign that the relationship is unhealthy. For your own peace and well-being, cutting ties may be the best solution. After enduring the exhausting drain of those who constantly play the victim, you may come to realize the toll it takes on your emotional well-being. But there's another form of emotional strain that can be equally damaging: dealing with someone who is emotionally unavailable. Whether it's a partner, a close friend, or even a family member, emotional unavailability creates a void in the relationship, one that leaves you feeling unsupported and alone. Stoicism values emotional balance and meaningful connections, yet when faced with emotional detachment, it becomes clear that the relationship lacks the reciprocity needed for it to thrive. Recognizing when someone is emotionally unavailable allows you to protect yourself and make the difficult but necessary decision to walk away from relationships that do not serve your emotional needs. Emotional unavailability can manifest in many forms. It might be subtle, like when someone avoids discussing feelings or changes the subject when conversations become too deep. Or it may be more obvious, with outright refusal to engage emotionally, leaving you feeling like you're speaking to a wall. Regardless of how it presents itself, the result is the same. You're left feeling disconnected, like you're reaching out into the void without any response in return. The difficulty in recognizing emotional unavailability lies in its often quiet nature. It's not always about dramatic arguments or conflicts. Instead, it's the absence of emotional engagement. You may find yourself constantly initiating conversations about feelings, only to be met with indifference or dismissiveness. Over time, this lack of emotional reciprocity creates a one-sided dynamic, where you're the only one investing in the emotional health of the relationship. When someone is emotionally unavailable, it's easy to start doubting yourself. You may wonder if you're asking for too much, or if you're being overly sensitive. But Stoicism teaches that emotional balance is essential for meaningful connections. A relationship where one person consistently withholds their emotions is not balanced, and it's not sustainable. If you find yourself questioning your worth because someone refuses to engage emotionally, it's a clear sign that the relationship is unhealthy. People who are emotionally unavailable often create barriers, either consciously or unconsciously, to avoid intimacy. These barriers can take the form of emotional distancing, reluctance to open up, or even physical withdrawal. While they may still be present in your life in a practical sense, their emotional absence is palpable. This creates a frustrating dynamic where you're physically close but emotionally distant, leaving you feeling more isolated than ever. Stoicism encourages us to seek relationships that offer mutual respect, understanding, and emotional investment. However, when someone is emotionally unavailable, they are incapable of providing this level of engagement. Their detachment often stems from fear of vulnerability, past trauma, or simply an unwillingness to invest in the emotional depth that a healthy relationship requires. While these reasons may explain their behavior, they don't excuse it. You deserve to be in relationships where your emotional needs are met. One of the most challenging aspects of dealing with emotional unavailability is the constant sense of rejection. Each time you try to connect on a deeper level, you're met with resistance or indifference. This repeated rejection can chip away at your confidence and self-esteem, making you feel like you're not worthy of emotional connection. Stoicism teaches us to value ourselves and recognize when a relationship is no longer serving our well-being. Emotional unavailability is a clear sign that the relationship is not giving you what you need. In relationships where emotional unavailability is present, communication often feels strained. You may find that important conversations about feelings, needs, or future plans are avoided or shut down altogether. This avoidance creates a barrier between you, preventing any real emotional growth or intimacy. Over time, this lack of communication leads to frustration, as you feel increasingly distant from someone who should be emotionally close to you. People who are emotionally unavailable may seem perfectly fine on the surface. They might be charming, successful, or attentive in other areas of life, but when it comes to emotional vulnerability, they shut down. This discrepancy between their outward behavior and their emotional detachment can be confusing, leaving you wondering why you feel so disconnected. Stoicism teaches us to look beyond the surface and focus on the substance of a relationship. If emotional engagement is lacking, it's a sign that the relationship is not fulfilling. Emotional unavailability also creates a sense of imbalance in the relationship. While you may be fully open, sharing your thoughts and feelings, the other person remains closed off, creating a dynamic where you're giving much more than you're receiving. This imbalance can be exhausting, as you constantly put in the effort to connect without ever feeling truly seen or heard. Over time, this can lead to resentment, as you realize that the relationship is not emotionally reciprocal. In some cases, emotional unavailability can be masked by other forms of affection or care. The person may show love through actions or gifts, but when it comes to discussing feelings or addressing emotional needs, they remain distant. While acts of service or kindness are important, they cannot replace the emotional depth needed for a truly meaningful connection. Stoicism teaches that true connection comes from mutual emotional investment, not just surface-level gestures. One of the most insidious effects of emotional unavailability is the way it makes you feel isolated within the relationship. Even when you're physically together, you may feel profoundly alone, as though your emotional needs are invisible or unimportant. This emotional isolation can lead to feelings of sadness, frustration, and even despair, as you come to terms with the fact that the person you care about is emotionally absent. Stoicism encourages us to seek relationships that promote emotional balance and well-being. When someone is emotionally unavailable, they are unable to provide the emotional support and connection that is necessary for a healthy relationship. It's important to recognize when this dynamic is present, and to understand that continuing to invest in a one-sided relationship will only lead to further disappointment and emotional exhaustion. People who are emotionally unavailable often struggle with vulnerability. They may have built walls around themselves to protect against past hurt or rejection, but these walls also prevent them from forming deep emotional connections. While you may empathize with their struggles, it's important to remember that emotional availability is a choice. If someone consistently refuses to open up or engage on an emotional level, they are choosing to remain disconnected. When someone is emotionally unavailable, it can feel like you're constantly chasing after something that remains just out of reach. No matter how much effort you put into the relationship, you never quite reach the level of emotional intimacy that you desire. This pursuit can be exhausting, leaving you feeling like you're always on the verge of a breakthrough, only to be met with the same emotional distance time and time again. Stoicism teaches us that we must focus on what we can control, our own emotions, actions, and decisions. You cannot force someone to be emotionally available if they are unwilling or unable to engage on that level. Recognizing this early on allows you to make the Stoic choice of removing yourself from a relationship that is not serving your emotional needs, rather than continuing to invest in a dynamic that leaves you unfulfilled. Emotional unavailability can also manifest in the form of indifference. The person may seem uninterested in your feelings, concerns, or emotional experiences, leaving you feeling like your emotions don't matter. This indifference can be incredibly hurtful, as it creates the sense that your emotional world is irrelevant to them. Over time, this can lead to feelings of sadness and frustration, as you realize that the emotional connection you crave is not reciprocated. In relationships where emotional unavailability is present, you may find yourself constantly trying to fix the other person, hoping that with enough time, patience, or love, they'll open up. However, Stoicism reminds us that we cannot change others, we can only change ourselves. Trying to force emotional availability in someone who is resistant to it will only lead to further frustration and disappointment. It's important to recognize when your efforts are in vain and to prioritize your own emotional well-being. People who are emotionally unavailable often deflect or minimize conversations about emotions. They may downplay your feelings or dismiss your need for emotional connection as unimportant. This minimization can leave you feeling invalidated, as though your emotional needs are not worthy of attention. Over time, this dynamic can erode your self-esteem, making you question whether your feelings are legitimate or whether you're being too emotional. Stoicism teaches that emotional balance is essential for meaningful connections. When someone consistently invalidates or dismisses your emotions, it creates an unhealthy dynamic where one person's needs are prioritized over the others. This imbalance is a clear sign that the relationship is not emotionally reciprocal, and continuing to invest in such a dynamic will only lead to further dissatisfaction. In relationships with emotionally unavailable individuals, it's common to feel like you're carrying the emotional weight of the relationship on your own. You may be the one initiating conversations, addressing issues, and trying to build emotional intimacy while the other person remains distant or disengaged. This one-sided effort can be exhausting, as it leaves you feeling like you're constantly pushing for something that the other person is unwilling to give. One of the most difficult aspects of dealing with emotional unavailability is the way it creates a sense of uncertainty. You may never know where you stand with the person, as their emotional detachment makes it hard to gauge their true feelings. This uncertainty can lead to anxiety, as you constantly question the stability of the relationship and whether they truly care about you on a deeper level. Stoicism encourages us to seek clarity and honesty in our relationships. When someone is emotionally unavailable, they are not providing the transparency needed for a healthy connection. Their emotional detachment creates a fog of ambiguity, leaving you unsure of where the relationship is headed. Recognizing this lack of clarity allows you to make a decisive choice. Either address the issue directly or remove yourself from the relationship to protect your emotional well-being. Emotional unavailability can also manifest in a lack of empathy. The person may struggle to understand or relate to your emotional experiences, leaving you feeling unsupported during difficult times. This lack of empathy can create a sense of emotional loneliness, as you feel like your emotions are not being acknowledged or validated by the person who is supposed to care about you. In relationships where emotional unavailability is present, conflict resolution often becomes difficult. The person may avoid addressing emotional issues altogether, preferring to sweep problems under the rug rather than engage in meaningful conversations. This avoidance creates a buildup of unresolved emotions, leading to frustration and resentment over time. Stoicism teaches that meaningful relationships require emotional balance and reciprocity. When someone is emotionally unavailable, they are not capable of providing the emotional depth needed for a healthy connection. Recognizing this early on allows you to make the Stoic choice of stepping back, rather than continuing to invest in a relationship that leaves you feeling emotionally unfulfilled. Ultimately, emotional unavailability is a barrier to intimacy and connection. While it may be difficult to confront, recognizing the signs early on allows you to protect your emotional well-being. Stoicism teaches that we must seek relationships that offer mutual emotional investment and support. If someone is unwilling or unable to engage on that level, it's important to make the decision to step away, prioritizing your own emotional health and peace. After grappling with the emotional distance of someone unavailable, you may begin to recognize how draining and frustrating it is to be in relationships where your feelings are not reciprocated. This realization can lead to deeper self-reflection on other areas of life, including your goals and aspirations. Pursuing your ambitions requires focus, encouragement, and unwavering belief in yourself. However, when someone consistently undermines your dreams or discourages your efforts, it can feel like you're constantly fighting uphill. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of pursuing personal growth with intention, but when someone dismisses your goals, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they become an obstacle in your journey. It's crucial to identify when this is happening and, if necessary, walk away to protect your vision and ambition. When someone undermines your goals, it often starts subtly. They may casually dismiss your plans, laugh at your aspirations, or express doubt in your ability to achieve what you're striving for. Over time, these small comments accumulate, leaving you questioning your own potential. The more they express their doubt, the more you may start to internalize their negativity, believing that perhaps they're right. This doubt seeps into your confidence, weakening the very foundation upon which your goals rest. Stoicism teaches that we must focus on our own growth and purpose, regardless of external influences. However, when someone close to you consistently undercuts your ambitions, their negativity can begin to affect your mindset. Instead of feeling empowered to pursue your dreams, you may find yourself hesitating, second-guessing whether your goals are even worth pursuing. This is a dangerous space to be in, as self-doubt can paralyze your progress before it even begins. People who undermine your goals often project their own insecurities onto you. They may feel threatened by your ambition or uncomfortable with the idea of you outgrowing them. Rather than supporting your growth, they attempt to hold you back, either consciously or unconsciously, by questioning your choices or downplaying the significance of your aspirations. This behavior is often rooted in their own fear of being left behind, but it's important to recognize that their fear should not dictate your path. One of the clearest signs that someone is undermining your goals is when they constantly try to redirect your focus. Instead of encouraging you to pursue what lights you up, They may suggest alternative paths that are more in line with their own comfort zone. They might say things like, "Are you sure that's realistic?" Or, "Wouldn't it be easier if you just did this instead?" While these comments may seem well-meaning on the surface, they are attempts to steer you away from your vision and toward a safer, more conventional route. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of staying true to your purpose, even when others don't understand or support it. Your goals are a reflection of your values, your passions, and your potential. When someone undermines those goals, they are not just questioning your ambitions, they are questioning your worth. Over time, this can erode your sense of self, making it difficult to stay motivated and focused on your journey. In relationships where your goals are undermined, you may start to feel isolated in your ambitions. Instead of receiving the support and encouragement you need to pursue your dreams, you're met with resistance or indifference. This isolation can be incredibly discouraging, as it leaves you feeling like you're pursuing your goals alone, without the backing of those who are supposed to care about your success. Stoicism teaches that while external support is valuable, your inner drive is what matters most. You must be your own strongest advocate. People who undermine your goals may also use subtle tactics to make you doubt your choices. They might express concern about the risks involved in your pursuit, or emphasize the challenges ahead, framing their negativity as realism. While it's important to be aware of potential obstacles, there's a difference between constructive advice and discouragement. Those who truly support your growth will acknowledge the challenges while still encouraging you to push forward. When someone consistently undermines your goals, it can create a toxic dynamic where you feel like you have to constantly defend your dreams. This defensiveness can drain your energy and shift your focus away from the work that actually matters. Instead of spending your time and effort pursuing your aspirations, you're caught in a cycle of trying to justify them to someone who doesn't believe in you. Stoicism teaches that your energy is precious, and it's better spent on actions that align with your purpose, not on convincing others of your worth. One of the most damaging effects of having your goals undermined is the gradual erosion of your confidence. When someone consistently questions your abilities or downplays your achievements, it can lead to self-doubt. You may start to believe that your goals are too lofty, that you're not capable of achieving them, or that it's not worth the effort. This doubt can be paralyzing, preventing you from taking the necessary steps to move forward. Stoicism reminds us that external opinions should not dictate our internal resolve. However, when someone close to you constantly undermines your goals, their negativity can be hard to shake. It's important to recognize when their influence is beginning to affect your mindset and to take steps to distance yourself from their discouragement. Your goals deserve to be nurtured, not diminished by the doubts of others. People who undermine your goals often have a fixed mindset. They believe that success is limited and that certain dreams are out of reach. This mindset not only limits their own potential, but also influences how they view your ambitions. They may not understand your vision because they cannot see beyond their own limitations. But Stoicism teaches that growth comes from embracing challenges and pushing beyond perceived limits. Just because someone else can't see your potential doesn't mean it's not there. In relationships where your goals are constantly undermined, it's common to feel unsupported. Instead of being uplifted by those around you, you're weighed down by their negativity. This lack of support can be incredibly discouraging, especially when you're working towards something that requires courage and perseverance. Over time, this environment of negativity can erode your motivation, making it harder to stay committed to your vision. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of pursuing your goals with clarity and determination, regardless of external obstacles. When someone consistently undermines your ambitions, They become an obstacle in your path. It's important to recognize that their negativity is not a reflection of your potential. It's a reflection of their own limitations. By distancing yourself from their influence, you create space to pursue your goals without the weight of their doubt. People who undermine your goals may also use passive-aggressive tactics to discourage you. They might make sarcastic comments, offer backhanded compliments, or subtly mock your efforts. These tactics are designed to chip away at your confidence without directly confronting you. Over time, this behavior can create a toxic atmosphere where you feel like your ambitions are being constantly ridiculed, even if it's done under the guise of humor. When someone undermines your goals, they are not just questioning your ambitions, they are questioning your vision for your life. This lack of belief in your potential can be incredibly hurtful, especially if it comes from someone you care about. Stoicism teaches that your vision is sacred and should be protected from those who seek to diminish it. Your goals are an expression of your purpose, and they deserve to be pursued with confidence and conviction. In relationships where your goals are undermined, you may start to feel like you're constantly seeking validation. Instead of trusting in your own vision, you find yourself looking for approval from someone who is unwilling to give it. This need for validation can be crippling, as it places your self-worth in the hands of someone who doesn't believe in you. Stoicism reminds us that our worth comes from within, and we must not rely on others to validate our dreams. One of the most important lessons from Stoicism is the idea that your purpose is yours alone to pursue. When someone undermines your goals, they are attempting to take away your agency over your own life. They may try to steer you in a different direction, one that aligns with their own comfort or expectations. But your path is your own to walk, and no one else has the right to dictate what your goals should be. When someone constantly undermines your goals, it's important to assess whether they truly have your best interests at heart. While they may claim to be looking out for you, their behavior suggests otherwise. True support comes from those who encourage you to grow, not from those who try to hold you back. Stoicism teaches that we must surround ourselves with people who uplift us, not those who sow doubt and discouragement. People who undermine your goals often do so because they are uncomfortable with change. They may fear that as you grow and succeed, the dynamic of your relationship will shift. Rather than celebrating your progress, they attempt to keep you in the same place where they feel safe and secure. But Stoicism teaches that growth is an essential part of life, and we must not allow others' fears to hold us back from pursuing our true potential. In relationships where your goals are undermined, you may start to feel a sense of stagnation. Instead of moving forward and making progress, you're constantly being pulled back by the weight of someone else's doubts. This stagnation can be incredibly frustrating, as it prevents you from achieving the growth and fulfillment that comes from pursuing your ambitions. Stoicism reminds us that we must always be moving forward, even when others try to hold us back. When someone consistently undermines your goals, it's important to set boundaries. You have the right to protect your vision and pursue your ambitions without interference from those who don't believe in you. Setting boundaries allows you to create a space where your goals can flourish, free from the negativity and doubt of others. Stoicism teaches that boundaries are essential for maintaining your focus and protecting your peace. In relationships where your goals are undermined, it's common to feel a sense of resentment. You may start to feel angry or frustrated with the person who is holding you back, even if their intentions are not malicious. This resentment can build over time, creating tension and conflict in the relationship. Stoicism reminds us that resentment is a sign that something needs to change. It's important to address the issue and, if necessary, distance yourself from those who are not supporting your growth. When someone undermines your goals, they are not just discouraging your ambitions, they are discouraging your potential for growth and self-improvement. This behavior can be incredibly damaging, as it creates a sense of limitation and self-doubt. But Stoicism teaches that we must not allow others to define our potential. Your goals are a reflection of your unique talents and passions, and they deserve to be pursued with confidence and determination. Ultimately, when someone consistently undermines your goals, it's a sign that the relationship is no longer serving your growth. Stoicism teaches that we must prioritize our own development and well-being, even if it means walking away from relationships that hold us back. By distancing yourself from those who discourage your progress, you create the space to pursue your goals with clarity, confidence, and conviction. As you step away from those who undermine your goals and ambitions, a new layer of clarity emerges. It becomes evident that not everyone in your life shares the same hunger for growth, and this disparity can create a rift in your journey towards self-improvement. Surrounding yourself with people who refuse to grow can stifle your own progress, leaving you feeling stuck, uninspired, and even resentful. Stoicism teaches that growth is essential to living a purposeful life, and when someone chooses to remain stagnant, their lack of development can negatively impact your trajectory. Recognizing when it's time to distance yourself from those who refuse to evolve is not only wise, but necessary for your own personal development. When someone refuses to grow, they often cling to the comfort of the familiar, resisting any form of change or improvement. This resistance to growth may not seem harmful at first, but over time, it creates a pattern of stagnation that can seep into your own life. If you're surrounded by individuals who consistently choose complacency over self-improvement, their mindset may start to influence your own, holding you back from reaching your full potential. Stoicism encourages constant self-reflection and the pursuit of personal growth. However, when those around you are content with staying the same, it becomes difficult to maintain the momentum needed for your own development. The more you interact with people who refuse to grow, the more their stagnation becomes a barrier to your own progress. Their refusal to push themselves can create a limiting environment, one that stifles your ambition and creativity. People who refuse to grow often see challenges as threats rather than opportunities. They may shy away from anything that pushes them out of their comfort zone, preferring to stick to what's easy and familiar. This mindset not only limits their own potential, but can also affect how they view your ambitions. Instead of encouraging you to take risks and embrace new challenges, they may discourage your efforts, not out of malice, but out of fear of change. One of the most telling signs that someone refuses to grow is their resistance to feedback. They may bristle at constructive criticism, viewing it as an attack rather than an opportunity for self-improvement. This defensiveness makes it difficult to have honest conversations about growth, as they are unwilling to acknowledge their areas for improvement. Over time, this resistance can create a disconnect between you as you continue to evolve while they remain stuck in the same place. Stoicism teaches that growth is a lifelong process, one that requires continuous effort and reflection. However, those who refuse to grow often view self-improvement as unnecessary or burdensome. They may dismiss the importance of learning new skills, gaining new perspectives, or challenging their own beliefs. This unwillingness to evolve not only limits their own potential, but can also create tension in relationships as you find yourself outgrowing the connection. In relationships where one person is committed to growth and the other is not, a sense of imbalance often arises. You may start to feel like you're moving forward while the other person remains stagnant, creating a gap in your connection. This gap can be frustrating as it leaves you feeling unsupported in your own journey. Over time, this imbalance can lead to resentment as you realize that the relationship is no longer aligned with your values or goals. People who refuse to grow often cling to outdated beliefs or habits, unwilling to adapt to new ideas or ways of thinking. This rigidity can create a stagnant atmosphere where innovation and progress are stifled. Instead of being in an environment that fosters creativity and growth, you find yourself surrounded by people who are stuck in the past, resistant to change. This lack of evolution can be suffocating, making it difficult for you to continue expanding your own horizons. When someone refuses to grow, they may also resist taking responsibility for their own life. Instead of seeking ways to improve themselves or their circumstances, they may blame external factors for their lack of progress. This victim mentality not only limits their potential for growth, but also creates a negative energy that can impact those around them. Stoicism teaches that we must take responsibility for our own development, but when someone refuses to do so, it becomes clear that they are not contributing to a healthy, growth-oriented environment. People who refuse to grow often become comfortable with mediocrity. They may settle for less than they are capable of, content to remain in a state of complacency rather than striving for something greater. While they may not explicitly discourage you from pursuing your own growth, their lack of ambition can create an environment where mediocrity is the norm. Over time, this mindset can seep into your own thinking, making it harder to push yourself toward excellence. In relationships where growth is not valued, conversations about self-improvement can feel strained or even unwelcome. You may find that your efforts to discuss new ideas, goals, or strategies for personal development are met with indifference or resistance. This lack of engagement can be frustrating, as it leaves you feeling unsupported in your journey toward growth. Stoicism teaches that meaningful connections are built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to growth. But when one person refuses to evolve, the relationship becomes unbalanced. People who refuse to grow often avoid discomfort at all costs. They may shy away from difficult conversations, challenging tasks, or situations that require them to step outside their comfort zone. While this avoidance may bring temporary relief, it ultimately hinders their ability to develop resilience and adaptability. Stoicism teaches that growth comes from facing challenges head-on, not from avoiding them. Surrounding yourself with people who embrace growth is essential for your own development. When someone refuses to grow, it's often because they are afraid of failure. They may fear that by attempting to improve themselves, they will expose their own limitations or weaknesses. This fear of failure creates a barrier to growth, as they remain stuck in a cycle of avoidance rather than taking the necessary risks to evolve. Over time, their fear-based mindset can influence your own approach to growth, making it harder to take the bold steps needed for self-improvement. Stoicism teaches that growth requires courage and resilience, but those who refuse to grow often lack these qualities. They may view personal development as unnecessary or even impossible, believing that they are already good enough as they are. This mindset not only limits their own potential, but can also create tension in relationships, as you find yourself outgrowing the connection while they remain content with the status quo. In relationships where one person refuses to grow, there is often a lack of meaningful conversation. Instead of discussing new ideas, exploring personal growth, or challenging each other to improve, conversations may become superficial or repetitive. This lack of depth can be frustrating, as it leaves you feeling like the relationship is no longer contributing to your own development. Over time, this stagnation can lead to a sense of disconnect, as you realize that the relationship is no longer aligned with your values. People who refuse to grow may also resist change in other areas of their life. They may cling to old habits, routines, or ways of thinking, even when those patterns no longer serve them. This resistance to change creates a stagnant environment, one that stifles creativity and innovation. Stoicism teaches that we must be adaptable and open to growth, but when someone refuses to evolve, they create a barrier to progress. When someone refuses to grow, they may also resist feedback or constructive criticism. Instead of viewing feedback as an opportunity for self-improvement, they may become defensive or dismissive. This resistance makes it difficult to have honest conversations about growth, as they are unwilling to acknowledge their areas for improvement. Over time, this lack of openness can create a disconnect in the relationship, as you find yourself outgrowing the connection. In relationships where growth is not valued, it's common to feel a sense of frustration or dissatisfaction. You may find that your efforts to improve yourself or your circumstances are met with indifference or resistance. This lack of support can be discouraging, as it leaves you feeling like your growth is not valued or appreciated. Stoicism teaches that personal development is essential for living a meaningful life, and surrounding yourself with people who share this value is crucial for your own progress. People who refuse to grow often become stuck in a cycle of complacency. They may settle for less than they are capable of, content to remain in a state of mediocrity rather than striving for something greater. This mindset not only limits their own potential, but can also create a stagnant environment for those around them. Over time, this complacency can seep into your own thinking, making it harder to push yourself toward excellence. When someone refuses to grow, it can also create tension in relationships. As you continue to evolve and pursue your own development, you may find that the relationship no longer feels aligned with your values or goals. This misalignment can lead to feelings of frustration or resentment, as you realize that the other person is not contributing to your own growth. Stoicism teaches that meaningful connections are built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to growth. In relationships where growth is not valued, it's common to feel a sense of isolation in your own journey. Instead of receiving support and encouragement, you may find yourself feeling like you're pursuing your goals alone. This isolation can be discouraging, as it leaves you feeling like your growth is not valued or appreciated. Over time, this lack of support can make it harder to stay motivated and focused on your own development. People who refuse to grow often avoid challenges or difficult situations, preferring to remain in their comfort zone. This avoidance creates a stagnant environment where innovation and progress are stifled. Instead of embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, they shy away from anything that requires effort or discomfort. Stoicism teaches that growth comes from facing challenges head-on, not from avoiding them. When someone refuses to grow, it can create a sense of frustration or dissatisfaction in relationships. You may find that your efforts to improve yourself or your circumstances are met with indifference or resistance. This lack of support can be discouraging, as it leaves you feeling like your growth is not valued or appreciated. Ultimately, surrounding yourself with people who refuse to grow can limit your own potential. Stoicism teaches that personal development is essential for living a meaningful life, and recognizing when someone's lack of growth is holding you back is crucial for your own progress. By distancing yourself from those who refuse to evolve, you create space for your own growth and development. As you've explored these 12 signs, it becomes clear that protecting your peace, purpose, and growth often requires difficult decisions. Cutting ties with toxic individuals is an act of self-respect, a step toward reclaiming your life and focusing on those who truly uplift you. Stoicism teaches us that the company we keep plays a critical role in our own journey of self-improvement. By letting go of those who drag us down, we make space for meaningful relationships and personal growth. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced any of these signs in a relationship? What did you do to protect your peace? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you're committed to living a life of purpose and self-respect, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss more powerful insights on how to elevate your life and relationships.